Hi, I'm Scott Allen Miller, and today on Sam IT I'm going to talk about how in hiring, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's one of those things we hear all the time. People say it, it's a common phrase, but I don't think we really understand it, and especially when it comes to IT hiring, it may be a little bit more dramatic than it is in other areas. We always think, yeah, it's important who you know, but deep down we keep going back to it's our skill set that gets us work. Now, in larger organizations, things tend to lean more towards your skill set getting you work than personal relationships, and in smaller business it leans more towards personal relationships. But that doesn't change the fact that personal relationships still play an incredibly significant role even in relatively large companies. You make contacts over your career, you know people, people trust you. It plays a big part. We've had a lot of videos that we've talked about hiring practices and career progression and things. And in all of it, we constantly come back to these challenges around hiring, around finding good jobs, and it's a complex scenario. It is very hard to hire anyone, right? And if you're hiring a cashier for fast food, that may not be so hard. You're looking for a pretty basic skill set. People are everywhere. No one's going to be relocated for that. But once we get to skilled jobs in any field, it starts to become challenging to figure out who you want to hire and where you want to work. When we get to jobs that are business related, like IT, this starts becoming extreme for a couple reasons. One is and we talk about this constantly, the technical aspects that make it almost impossible for anyone to figure out what the job is, what it should be, and who should be hired, or what skill sets that person should have, right? If you're hiring someone who's the expert in something, you probably don't have the expertise to be sure who to hire. If you're hiring for a cashier, you know that someone needs to be able to count money, that they need to be able to talk to customers. You're sure of their job role before you hire them. When you're hiring IT, this may be true for your help desk, but when you get to IT managers and decision makers and higher level positions, even in the mid-engineering range, you are probably hiring those people to help guide you, not just to action already made decisions by someone else in the IT chain. Because of that, you don't necessarily know what they need to know in order to do their jobs. Their first day on the job may be to change all the preconceptions that you had, and now the skill set that you needed from them may be different. So there's a lot of odd challenges in the way that we have to hire those positions. Because of that, we struggle to find value in finding technical expertise or technical alignment, and we find really great value in personal relationships, in how people interact with each other, and how much you can trust the people with whom you work. And so companies have a tendency to be really reliant on personal relationships to tackle those pieces because they can tackle them, and leave technical pieces to chance because they kind of have to anyway. That doesn't mean that there aren't good hiring practices and that we shouldn't follow them and fix some of these things, and we will talk about that a lot in this series. But in reality, in practical terms, companies today trying to take real action find themselves struggling to figure out how to hire the right technical person, or even what that person might be like, and trying to leverage what little control they do have by finding people that they know and can trust and believe will at very least act in the interest of the company, have some aptitude in the direction that they need, and will attempt to do the right thing. And this makes sense because it is possible to gain technical skills, but it's not really reasonable to expect someone who's not trustworthy to become trustworthy, or someone who's lazy to become a good worker, those kinds of things. So it makes a lot of sense, and it's how employees often look for jobs as well. You don't know what company is going to be any good once they hire you. Companies often like to think that that everyone knows them and that everyone wants to work there, but that's not the real world. In reality, the average employee has no idea if they want to work at a normal employer. They have to be there for a while before they really learn what's good and what's bad and how it works and what the culture is. So up front, they need to rely on the same kinds of personal relationships to have a friend or a mentor who's like, oh, this job, this company, they're great. You want to be there. Come work for me. Come work with me. Let me recommend you. Those kinds of things. And so in both directions, we don't know how to find what we need. This is the path we have to it. And so it's not that technical expertise, it's not that experience and skills aren't important, and those things help to create the personal relationships that then lead you on to other things. But it is important to understand that who you know, who you interact with, who you create relationships with is going to be, from your first job to your last, something that is incredibly impactful to your career. Not just an advancement, which is also true, and that's less ideal than where it happens in general employment, but in being employed, in finding your next position. Don't be surprised to find that in the real world, an enormous percentage of all jobs out there are found in this way. It's not some niche, it's not a fluke, it's also not over 50%, but the higher you get, the more likely it is that your career is going to be defined by the relationships you were able to make earlier in your career. So thanks for joining me. I hope this is helpful. Let me know in the comments how personal relationships have affected your career, how lack thereof has held you back, how you've managed to work around that, how you see it playing out in the spaces that you see. Remember to like and subscribe, and of course, at some point I'll get the link down below for Patreon, and you can support us directly. Thank you for joining me.